Okay, my very, very good friends, I am here to astound you. I was doing a little more reading, a little more research on ancient texts regarding Typhon and this fish, and I could not figure out anything about this fish. The dragon is pretty obvious now, and everybody that's been following me should fully understand this. It's very, very, very obvious. There he is right there. There's his dragon's scaled throat. He's spitting stuff down at that big fish. His red flared eye, and I'm going to see this in the text written about him. And here he is, not sketched out. You're going to have to go look for yourself. But this is about where Zeus cut his throat, and even on the ancient maps, look at this. This is a map showing, there he is with his throat cut. He is enormous, runs all the way across North Africa. This is a dragon with his throat cut. I mean, I can't see any other way of seeing it. And do you want to see his throat cut? Of course you do. Here it is right here. There's the fish being spit at by the dragon down here, and it's actually eating through his flesh, through his scales, down to his flesh. You can see the blood vessels, the arteries, the veins, the capillaries, the lymphatic system. I've even found the lymph ducts. This is, it ate right through his scales. And that came from this gigantic dragon right up here out of his gigantic dragon face. Red flared eye, all that flashy stuff they have on the parades in China. This is the layer of his throat running down. This is all washed off, run off of a dead, decaying creature. These are his dragon-scaled throat. You see that? These are dragon scales. That's the inside of his throat. It's collapsed. All right? I don't know what he ate, but I do know where he came from now, and I know where the fish came from. And you stick around and watch, because I've always said I have no explanation for this. Now I do. I have an explanation for them both, and you'll see it in this video. And that was a gigantic dragon, and his tail came all the way out here, and you're going to hear it in the text. They wrote exactly what it was, and exactly what he was, and he was Typhon. Okay, as you're going to hear, Zeus cut his throat with an adamantine sickle, and this is the dragon's throat is cut right across there. You see that? Down to here, everything's fine, and causing massive destruction here, and blood gushing out into the desert. Black is the vein blood, is the O2 version, oxygen 2. And the O3 version is here. They're attached to irons. So that's why you have, it's called hematite, and they make iron out of this. And that's magnetite, and they make iron out of that too. And blood, which is what all this is, blood is iron. It's primarily iron. It makes plants grow green as can be. This is the middle of the desert. Why are they growing so green out here? Well, I can tell you why. Is because there's blood running out of this creature still has tubing inside of it. All right, as the moisture comes down, it comes out of there. And they're all over the world like that, all of the streams and things. I'm just telling you, it appears that the things that they talked about, the earth being a corpse and a body, and I can tell you one thing right now, that is a dragon. So you watch and listen to this, what I have to say about the ancient texts, and take it from there. But this is going to be an ongoing thing. I'm going to really milk it. No, I'm just interested. I never realized how much I missed. And, you know, obviously 10 years ago, this would have been just hysterically laughed at. I'm not laughing now. Okay, my friends, this is over the top. This is Ovid, and this is book 5 of Metamorphoses, his epic work of about creation all the way up to the time of Julius Caesar. Now, he's talking about the Muses, who are the daughters of Zeus. And one day, all of a sudden, these 9 sisters showed up, these magpies, and challenged them to a singing contest. I'm telling you, this stuff is just crazy, but it's what happened. That's what they say. Now listen to this. They they were going to have a sing-off, and then they were going to grant one lands and the other one lands, whatever, whoever won. So they selected the nymphs, were elected and sworn to say who was the best, and was their solemn duty. They couldn't lie. So, without drawing lots, the one who had first declared the contest sang of the war with the gods. Now listen to this. This is what really got me. This is the first one that wanted the contest sang of the war with the gods, granting false honors to the giants. Granting false honors to the giants, and diminishing the actions of the mighty deities. Now, how Typhonius, which is Typhon, issued forth from his abode in the depths of the earth. This is what I never saw this before. Typhon apparently lived inside the depths of the earth. He came out and attacked all of the... Well, anyway, listen. Typhon issued forth from his abode, where he lived, in the depths inside of the earth, filling the heavenly gods with fear, and how they all turned their backs in flight until Egypt received them, and the Nile with its 7 mouths. She told how earth-born Typhonius came there as well, and the gods concealed themselves in disguised forms. Jupiter, she said, turned himself into a ram. The head of the flock was Jupiter, and even now Libyan Ammon is shown with curving horns. Delian Apollo hid as a crow. Bacchus, Semelius' child, hid as a goat. Diana, the sister of Phoebus, as a cat, Saturnian. This is just out of control crazy. Saturnian Juno as a white cow. Venus was a fish. Oh my God! Venus was the fish. Oh, I'm going to drop to the floor. I'm not kidding you. This is the first time I read this incomplete. When I got to this point, I said, I'm going to tape this. Venus was the fish. And Selenian Mercury, the wings. This is what, and now, this is Ovid, who wrote this book, Metamorphoses. This is book 5. And this is the contest between these magpies and the muses for singing. And this talks about Typhon coming out of the depths of the earth where he lived, because he couldn't exist on top of the earth. Everybody says, oh, it's impossible. Well, I don't disagree with that. Venus hid as the fish. And as Typhon was attacking the fish, so maybe he caught a hold of her and wiped Venus out. And the rest of them got away. I don't know how big that fish is. Pretty big. If all the rest of them got that size, I can't believe that's possible. Typhon was considered. Well, let me read you what Appolodorus said about him, because this is just out of control, crazy. But when I read you what Appolodorus said, and what I can show you, Typhon, and then I can show you a fish being attacked by Typhon, and Venus was a fish, and Venus was the new planet, literally, during the time of the Great Flood. It's the thing that caused the Great Flood. This just dropped into me. So, like I said, this is a ramble. I'm going through, and you're going to go through with me if you want, or else do something else. But this is just blowing my mind. I'm going to have to take a Z break. Okay, this is way over the top. We're talking about Zeus who is Jupiter, literally the planet Jupiter, and Pluto, who is literally the planet Pluto. And all of these different things are actually creatures, and the Titans and the moons, and they're all something that was godly, a goddish sort of thing, the time with the gods. Now we're talking about, this was the legend of Demeter. That's kind of convoluted, so we're not going to bother looking at that. But listen to this. The earth, vexed on account of the Titans, they're the big ones, brought forth the giants. So you had the Titans, now you got the giants, whom she had by the sky. Earth had them by mixing with the sky, brought forth the giants. These were matchless in bulk, their bodies, and invincible in their might. Terrible of aspect did they appear, long locks drooping from their head and chin, and with scales of dragons for feet. They were born, as some say, in Pelgray, but according to others in Pellene. And they darted rocks and burning oaks at the sky, surpassing all the rest were Porphyrion and Eleos, who was even immortal so long as he fought in the land of his birth. Now that's tricky, because watch what they did to him. He also drove away the cows of the sun from Ethria. This is just crazy stuff. I'm sorry. Now the gods had an oracle that none of the giants could perish at the hand of gods. So an oracle said now the gods had an oracle that none of the giants could perish at the hand of the gods, so they can't kill them. But that with the help of a mortal, they would be made an end of. Okay, so they needed a mortal to do the job of getting rid of the giants. Learning of this, Earth sought for a simple person, apparently, to prevent the giants from being destroyed, even by a mortal. Sought for a simple solution to prevent the giants from being destroyed, even by a mortal. But Zeus forbade the dawn and the moon and the sun to shine. And then, before anybody else could get it, he culled the simple himself, and by means of Athena summoned Hercules to his help. Hercules first shot Aclephinus with an arrow, but when the giant fell on the ground, he somewhat revived. However, Athena's advice, Hercules dragged him outside Pellene, and then the giant died. He couldn't die inside of his own territory, so he had dragged him out and killed him. Now listen to this. In the battle, Porphyrion attacked Hercules and Hera. Nonetheless, Zeus inspired him with lust for Hera. He was a womanizer, Zeus. And when he tore her robes and would have forced her, she called for help, and Zeus smote him with a thunderbolt, and Hercules shot him dead with an arrow. Hercules was Zeus's enforcer. Now, as for the other giants, Aphiletus was shot by Apollo with an arrow in his left eye and by Hercules in his right eye. Oh, man. Eurytus was killed by Dionysus with Epirus, and Cleidius by Hersiges with torches, and Mimas and Hephaestus with missiles of red-hot metal. And Cleidius fled, but Athena threw on him in his flight the island of Sicily, and she flayed Pallas and used his skin to shield her own body in the fight. Polybotes was chased through the sea by Poseidon and came to Kos, and Poseidon, breaking off that piece of the island, which is called Nisrum, threw it on him. Oh man, can you imagine? I'm telling you, wait till you hear the big one. This is going to be a shocker du jour. Hermes, wearing the helmet of Hades, slew Hippolytus in the fight, and Artemis slew Gratian. And the Fates, fighting with brazier clubs, killed Argus, Agrius, and Thoas The other giants Zeus smote and destroyed with thunderbolts, and all of them Hercules shot with arrows as they were dying. Now, get ready for this. All right, like I said, this is just basically a ramble about all of our ancient past. And what we have to do is take into account what each culture had to say. Now, what I'm talking about today is basically the Greeks and Perseus and Phineas and Typhon and, you know, the giant fish and all that stuff was written about. And people being turned to stone, Medusa, all of that stuff was written about in these books by Ovid. You have 15 books. This was a epic work of, it was a masterpiece. And at the time, it was as well written as the Old Testament. And it was very, very well received. So we're going to try to understand the Greek. And I think I've got a good handle on it. We're going to go into it now. But we still got to go into the Norse. We got to go in all of the different cultures. And even like the Incas and the Mayans and all that stuff, the feathered serpent, that stuff's real too. Quetzalcoatl, no question, we got him on the East Coast. And these things are just absolutely enormous. And Quetzalcoatl is shown eating a giant, apparently. And maybe he was the savior of the people. I'm going to look at this in a couple of different lights here, because originally I thought, well, all these crazy killer things are terrible. Well, it depends what's going to come after us. Are they that bad if they were protecting us? I don't know. It seems like the Ragnarok thing is all, they're being saved up for a gigantic war against giants. Quetzalcoatl shown eating a giant. Okay, I showed you Typhon. I've also found Quetzalcoatl, and it's showing him eating giants or something. He was a giant. He's a giant. It's very similar to Typhon. And here he is eating giants, so maybe they're protectors of us. I don't know. The Ragnarok people are all gathering together, getting ready to fight the Jortners, which are giants. So maybe the giants are coming back. Who knows?